Texas Tech makes a big statement in Salt Lake City.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to a reaction episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view post. What a game in Salt Lake City. It was closer than the final score indicated, and yet I can still confidently and accurately say Texas Tech dominated Utah in a couple of different phases. Plus, Mike Gundy needs to go. Luke Fickell, probably the same in Wisconsin. That is all coming on this show. So let's start with Texas Tech. There is no better vibe than what you should be feeling down in Lubbock right now. If this had been a neutral site game, if this had been a home game for Texas Tech, I would have picked them to win. They were my preseason number one team in the Big 12 coming into this year. The reason I picked Utah to win the game is because they were at home. And you know what? The home field advantage was real. Utah's crowd was electric for a 10 a.m. local time kickoff. And they might have wanted it under the lights. The environment was legit. The environment was incredible. And Texas Tech struggled with it and still won the game. What do they have? 5, 6, 40 false start penalties? And it didn't matter. They won the game. And Texas Tech head coach Joey McGuire, he and his staff, what a job they just did. Having their backup quarterback ready. Behren Morton goes down in this game. If you told me those two things before the game kicked off, I would have felt so good about my pick of Utah winning the game. They're struggling with the crowd. The backup quarterback gets in there. No, there were stretches where Will Hammond, actually on the day, Will Hammond's numbers were better than Behren Morton's. He had a better completion percentage for more yards. He had a touchdown. Morton threw 2 picks, didn't have a score. You hope Behren Morton's okay for Texas Tech. That's certainly a question. In the short term, though, you enjoy this one because the fact that you just went and for a large chunk of the game played with a backup quarterback and just manhandled Utah, that is an incredible statement to make. And the rest of Texas Tech's schedule for this season, it doesn't currently have a ranked team on it. Houston, Kansas, Arizona State, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, BYU, UCF, West Virginia. This can have serious playoff implications because an 11-win Texas Tech team, I had them 10-2 before the year. 11-1 Texas Tech is on the table, and that can shake up the playoff. That's a path for the Big 12 to get 2 teams in. But for the Red Raiders to not just control Utah in the trenches, the Texas Tech offensive line is the MVP. Absolute MVP of the game. I can't name all 5 guys off the top of my head, but guess what? I know how they work as one unit, and they just went and outplayed Utah. The Red Raiders went for 173 yards rushing in this game. Conversely, that Texas Tech defensive line that we talked about coming into this week holds Utah to 73 yards on the ground. I mean, Devin Dampier was in a blender the entire game. It was a complete and utter mess for the Utah offense, which I'll get to. But everything about Texas Tech that you thought coming into this preseason for the hype was confirmed in this game. They just went on the road and just absolutely controlled Utah. You can't have a better example in the Big 12 Conference, really, to justify preseason hype. This is what that game just did. That is an incredible win for Texas Tech. They ran the ball well. They controlled Utah's run. The defense. This game was about the defense. I mean, Will Hammond, I mentioned, was amazing. The offensive line was great. But this game was going back and forth with the defensive plays time and time and time again. And it was Texas Tech's front 7 that were not letting Utah do anything. It was the secondary that was controlling Devin Dampier and keeping him utterly contained, both running the ball and throwing. He finishes the game under 200 yards passing with 2 interceptions. They could not have played this game any better. So there is no vibe higher on my vibe meter than Texas Tech. That's an outright winning excitement sort of vibe. I might change the phraseology of that at some point, but Texas Tech, what an absolute game. Now, Utah. Do I put you at the bottom of the vibes list for the Utah fans coming out of this game? I actually don't. As bad as this was, it should not have looked. Were you going to go and do to Texas Tech what you did to UCLA? Of course not, because Texas Tech is a significantly better football team. And Utah did several things wrong in this game. I mean, just straight up, they did not tackle well. They did not make easy plays on offense. They could not run the ball consistently. Those things are problems, especially for a group that has such a good offensive line with a couple of NFL tackles. Texas Tech pushed them around. Texas Tech went and invested in that side of the ball. They were better than you today. Doesn't mean everybody else is going to be better than you going forward. And the Utah defense, I think, wore down at the end because of the offense's inability to sustain drives. The fourth quarter, this game got away from Utah in the fourth quarter. The dominating aspect came before Texas Tech really pulled away, and that's what then allowed them to do that, because they were wearing Utah down, and you just don't see that or talk about that with Utah very often. Am I concerned that Utah is going to have that happen to them week in and week out? No, actually, I am not. I think this week they weren't good enough. They certainly were not good enough. And you start Big 12 play with a loss, yep, that's tough. That is definitely tough for Utah. No bones about it. You have to go on the road next week to West Virginia. They should be able to win that game, no problem. But most teams on Utah's schedule, this is the good news, this is the optimistic look for Utah fans here. Most teams on your schedule are not going to be able to do to you what Texas Tech did. And for them to have done it in Salt Lake City, yeah, there's a shock factor. Yeah, there's that element of, oh my gosh, how did that just happen? What are we doing? It didn't look like Utah football for a lot of it. I think that was a function of the opponent they were playing more than fundamental issues with Utah or, the coaching staff not being ready to go. No, I think Devin Dampier will be okay. There's a learning opportunity here. This is a bad game. I mean, bad game. He missed too many easy throws. When you've got a guy wide open, got to be able to hit him and at least give him a chance. And he just missed too many throws. He made some poor decisions. But those are the sorts of things that his offense coordinator, Jason Beck, going to have to work with him on. Or is it Jason Eck? I don't ever remember. No, it's Jason Beck. But those are the sorts of things he's going to have to improve. Because this is now a moment where you face an inflection point throughout the course of Devin Dampier's season. And that moment is, hey, are we going to allow this to snowball in the negative? Or are we going to turn on the heaters, melt the snow, and let it flow into the river a little bit and get back on track and course correct and start flowing again? That's what this game needs to be for Utah, for them to be able to go forward and make the Big 12 championship game, because they can probably only lose one other game in conference play, and they might need some help if they are going to do that now. It's not an impossible path. It's just a much more difficult path. So I certainly am not telling Utah fans to feel good after what you saw. I don't think all hope is lost. I think Utah just has to get that quarterback situation figured out a little bit and also understand how to run the ball a little bit better. And by the way, I think Utah will be able to do that. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit me up on Twitter, all that good stuff. Disaster games all over the place. Mike Gundy, yikes. First, this episode brought to you by our friends at Mazda. You can just move through life, or you can find the things that move you. It's your choice. I know which one I'd go with. You can choose to get out there, choose your people. You can choose to go for it, like really go for it. Just choose to do something that moves you, like watching college football or driving a Mazda car. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. Mazda, move and be moved. Let's check in on who delivered this week, brought to you by our friends over at DoorDash. You can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. How about, I don't know, the entire Tulsa team? Can I just shout out the Golden Hurricanes program winning in Stillwater for the first time since 1951? How about Steve Angeli? Looks really good for Syracuse. Orange fans should feel really good about that move that they made in the transfer portal. Just like these players are delivering for their teams, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order, stack it up all season. You could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day. Only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. Check out DoorDash today, and then check out my friends at 5 Hour Energy that just got a caffeine flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. So if you want to keep yourself going on a Saturday, make sure you are at maximum excitement level all day long as all these crazy awesome games are going on, then you need to go get yourself a 5-hour energy. What you'll love most is how portable they are. You can take them anywhere. Just like I take this show with me anywhere, and all my equipment, 5-hour energies can go with you anywhere. Enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. Time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5-hour energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in-store and online at www.5hourenergy.com or get it on Amazon. Mike Gundy. Yikes. Major yikes. There are two problems for Oklahoma State. Number one, you're having a second straight lost season on the heels of a disastrous upset in which Tulsa went 63 miles from their campus. You paid them to go there, and what do you know? They beat you. Oh, boy. Oklahoma State was trying to stage a comeback. And it doesn't matter if you're playing this game with your backup quarterback. Oklahoma State should be able to beat Tulsa with their third-string quarterback, but they weren't able to get the job done here. Yikes. Major yikes. It's the first time Tulsa has won in Stillwater since 1951. I mean, oof. But that might not be Oklahoma State's biggest problem. When Oklahoma State played Oregon, leading up to that game, Mike Gundy made some comments that I don't think were really directed at Oregon, but of course they were playing the Ducks. And I don't think I don't think he meant it as an actual shot. I don't think he was trying to rile up the Oregon fan base. I think he was talking to his fans, his donors, his bosses at the university, and letting them know, I don't have what I need to compete. Now, you should have what you need to go and beat Tulsa in literally any given year. What a win for the Golden Hurricanes. But Mike Gundy has to be bought out of his contract to the tune of $15 million. Maybe they can spread that out over time. I don't know that Oklahoma State has got the money to do that. That's what needs to happen, though. You need to start over. I thought with the players they brought in this offseason, and losing your quarterback to begin the year certainly hurts. This is the low point. This is not even the first time in the last couple of seasons that Oklahoma State has been beaten by a group of 5 team on their home field. South Alabama did it to him a couple of years ago. When you have as much equity built up as Mike Gundy does in Stillwater, which he certainly deserves to have, a lot more has to happen to justify moving in a different direction at head coach than it would for another program. Luke Fickell, who I'll talk about later, Luke Fickell is on thinner ice because he doesn't have a couple of decades worth of winning at a high level and being one of the most successful programs in the entire country. He doesn't have that in his back pocket. So you have to go to a really extreme level for a fan base, for an administration, a donor base to say, this is no longer our guy. Oklahoma State has reached that level. You are there. 69-3 at Oregon, yikes. Losing to Tulsa on your home field, oof. UT Martin wasn't as easy as it should have been. These are the moments that you have to be able to look at if you're Oklahoma State and say, hey, if we want to be serious about football going forward, Mike Gundy can't be our head coach. A thing isn't beautiful because it lasts. He had an incredible run. I'm not going to remember Mike Gundy in Oklahoma State for the end and say, no, he wasn't actually ever a good coach. No, I know he was a great coach. I watched him for a really, really long time, have a lot of success with this program. You need to go in a new direction. Do they have the resources to move there? I don't know. I honestly do not know. But for the sake of the football program, that's what needs to happen. When Tulsa is pushing you around, when Tulsa's beating you on your home field, that just screams a football team that has quit on their head coach. And a head coach that is not capable of going out there and giving you a good chance to win. I don't know where Oklahoma State's wins come the rest of this season. Maybe they turn it around. Hey, it's still early. Still technically early. You could turn it around. But it looks really, really ugly. And I don't know in what world, for a program that we know can contend for Big 12 championships, I don't know what in the world the path would look like for Mike Gundy to be the head coach that gets them back on top. I think this has fallen too far down. I think they need a fresh start. He says they need some money. Well, a new coaching hire and the right coaching hire can invigorate a football program to the point where you see more money than you did in the past. I look at Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State. They need that sort of guy. But Mike Gundy is no longer the right coach for the Oklahoma State Cowboys. I'd like to point out I am not pretending Dabo Swinney doesn't exist. I'm going to save those thoughts for a Monday show, but Luke Fickell at Wisconsin, dude, this was supposed to be the easy one. Maryland, bottom tier team in the Big Ten, who is now 4-0, by the way. They haven't played anyone, unless you count Wisconsin on the road. But do we? Do we count Wisconsin on the road? Holy smokes, this looks bad. Here's the really easy way that Luke Fickell will be relieved of his coaching duties before the season comes to a close. Do you realize going into the bye week, they have to come out of it and play more football games? That's tough. That's a tough situation for Luke Fickell to be in, because the more you talk about Luke Fickell when they're not playing games, I think the more positive you can be about the Wisconsin Badgers' current predicament as a program. But once the actual games start going, not good. Not good. And that's not to say there are a lot of great things that you can mention about the Badger program since he got there and when they're not playing games. But here's the schedule for the rest of the year. They go into the bye after this disaster against Maryland. They go at Michigan. At Michigan. Good luck. Iowa, who apparently scores points now. They beat Rutgers on Friday night, scoring points for the second straight week. They play Ohio State. They go at Oregon. They host Washington. They go at Indiana. They play Illinois. They go at Minnesota. There's a real chance Wisconsin's an underdog in every single game that they will play the rest of the season. 8 straight, they'll be an underdog. Doesn't mean they'll lose them all, but where's the game when I mention those teams that off the top of your head you went, oh, they'll win that one? It's not that they can't beat Iowa or Washington or Minnesota, though I've been more impressed with those 3 teams than I have with Wisconsin so far this year. The other thing working against Luke Fickell in this situation, the optics of this particular game. Not just that you were at home and playing Maryland, who is not a top-tier team, is also someone who we've talked about over on the Locked On Big Ten squad as being a potential candidate to fire their coach before the season comes to a close. You had their quarterback from last year because you're the Wisconsin Badgers. You're ahead of where Maryland is at. You go and get their quarterback, like Billy Beane talks about the A's as the Yankees in Moneyball. We're a farm system for the New York Yankees. Well, that's what you clearly viewed Maryland as to some extent. Hey, thanks for getting this guy's career started. We think Billy Edwards is good. Come up here to Wisconsin where you can be better. And then you can't move the ball? And then the offense is an embarrassment? Luke Fickell's an offensive guy. And it looks so bad everywhere that you go on that side of the ball. I mean, the run game, the consistency, trick plays don't work. Edwards is a respectable player. He shouldn't look as poor as he did. Malik Washington was a better quarterback in this game. There's just no other way to see it. He was a significantly better quarterback because he looked like he was playing in a better offense. He looked like he'd gotten better coaching. And you know what? He really shouldn't have. He shouldn't, but he did. That's the reality for Wisconsin in this game. So the optics of your quarterback's former team, who's supposed to be worse than you, coming to your home field and playing a game in your Big Ten opener that after you got beat bad by Alabama, nobody really faults you for that. The Crimson Tide might have figured some things out, but you get all of the fault in this one. They are at the bottom of my vibes tier. Bottom for Wisconsin. I don't know which. Is this going to be a 3-win season for Wisconsin? That's on the table. 3 or 4 wins. You miss a bowl game a second year in a row in Wisconsin, you're done. I don't know if Luke Fickell makes it to the end. He's got to turn things around really, really quickly, or we're going to have a Big Ten job opening. And I talk about Fickell before I talk about Dabo Swinney because Clemson's not going to fire him. Not this year. I really don't believe that. Do I know that? Nope, not going to say I know it, but I don't believe that'd be the case. But Luke Fickell's seat, as hot as anybody in all of college football. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time, and until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.